urged Americans to switch from whiskey to beer or light wine. Commercial beer, however, was available only in cities, and imported wine cost too much for the average drinker. Reformers then demanded that everyone voluntarily abstain from all alcoholic beverages. By 1840, perhaps half of Americans had taken the pledge, and reformers decided that the rest of the population needed to be sober too. Beginning with Maine in 1851, 11 states passed prohibition laws during the 1850s. These laws failed in large part because Irish and German immigrants refused to give up whiskey and beer. Alcohol policy was temporarily put aside during the Civil War. The Woman's Christian Temperance Union, WCTU, founded in 1874, resumed the long campaign to dry out America by fighting to ban alcohol at the local, state, and national levels. Under Frances Willard, the organization also advocated women's suffrage. Until Willard's death in 1898, the WCTU was the main organization pushing anti-liquor legislation. Local option prohibition enjoyed considerable success in rural areas, where evangelical churches were strong. In 1893, the Anti-Saloon League, ASL, joined the fight. Led by the brilliant Washington lobbyist Wayne Wheeler, the ASL mobilized voters for prohibition. The ASL elected legislators and members of Congress loyal to its agenda. The group pushed local option where it could not win statewide prohibition. Once liquor dealers were eliminated from large areas of a statewide ban was easier to enact. Wheeler believed that great wet cities such as New York, Chicago, and San Francisco eventually could be dried out by encirclement. Prohibition then could be made permanent with a national constitutional amendment. To defeat ASL-backed dry candidates, wet opponents took money from brewers, who made hidden donations through the German-American Alliance, an immigrant organization with 2 million members. When World War I began in 1914, the Alliance backed Germany, and by 1916 no candidate could be seen taking money either from brewers, almost all of German ancestry, or from the Alliance. Wets lost the 1916 election, and Wheeler pounced. Once the United States declared war on Germany in April 1917, Congress imposed temporary wartime prohibition to prevent food shortages and passed the 18th Amendment. Ratified in little more than a year, the amendment enjoyed popular support. When Prohibition arrived in 1920, some Americans stopped drinking, and consumption of alcohol during the early 20s may have dropped by 2/3. Alcohol, however, did not disappear. By the mid-1920s, bootlegging gangsters, such as Chicago's Al Capone, had accumulated fabulous untaxed wealth. Gang violence turned many Americans against Prohibition. Prohibition changed where and how alcohol was consumed. The all-male saloon, notorious for fights, prostitutes, and vote-buying, gave way to the speakeasy, which attracted both men and women. Admission required a pass, a code word, or an introduction from a trusted customer. Police were paid to look the other way. Raids from the Federal Prohibition Bureau, however, could cause trouble. Harlem residents held rent parties where strangers paid to eat, drink, and dance. The tenant earned enough to pay the rent. Many people drank liquor supplied by the bellhop in a rented hotel room. The home cocktail party also gained popularity. In 1924, Al Smith, the wet Irish Catholic governor of New York, ran for president. At the Democratic National Convention in New York, rural dry forces led by the prohibitionist William Jennings Bryan blocked Smith's nomination. 4 years later, Smith won the nomination and promised to modify prohibition to allow beer. Southern evangelicals crusaded against Smith as a wet urban Catholic. 5 Southern states bolted the Democratic Party, and Herbert Hoover, who ran on the promise of better enforcement, easily won the election. Even before Prohibition went into effect, opponents organized for repeal. In 1918, wealthy business executives